Another day, another supplement that doesn't do what it says it does. Now, no one is more upset about this news than me. I was very excited about being able to take creatine in the form of gummies, popping a couple of gummy lollies every day, getting my daily intake of creatine so that I could make the best possible progress with my fitness. It did sound too good to be true, and, well, turns out it might have been too good to be true. And I won't lie. There's a large part of me here that isn't very surprised, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, this week a reasonably large brand that makes a creatine gummy product was put under the spotlight when it was discovered that their creatine gummies had nowhere near the amount of creatine in them that they were supposed to have. And this does call into question all of the other brands, because if we can't trust one, why should we trust any of the others? So today I'm going to explain what is going on with these creatine gummies and why we need to be skeptical with all of these supplement products and brands. So let's go. Now, first of all, if you haven't already seen the video that James Smith did on this, the link is in the description. He is really putting in the work with investigating creatine gummies, and his video has all of the interesting information regarding this. But the chances are you have probably already seen it. Creatine is probably the most popular and commonly used supplement in the gym and fitness space. The only thing that people would take more is protein. And the reason it's so popular is because it is the most well-researched supplement out there. There is plenty of evidence to show that it helps with energy production, which in turn helps with muscle growth and strength. Now, even more recently though, we are starting to see research come out that shows it has benefits with brain function as well, and we're starting to see the potential use of creatine outside of the gym and fitness space. So given how popular and effective it is, it does make for a great product idea for any company that is making fitness supplements. And there are plenty of creatine supplements out there. The powdered form is the most widely available, but it does come with some issues and complaints. The main one is that it's a bit chalky, and a large issue that people have with the powder is with the texture. It's a bit tricky to dissolve, and a lot of people add it to their protein drinks because they don't want to double up with the drinks, which may ruin your protein shake too. Now, obviously, you could always take the approach of suck it up, just have the drink. It doesn't need to be pleasant, but there are people that would like a solution to this, and we do actually have capsules that exist, but I think they tend to be fairly large. But gummies, they are the things that have been taking off lately because everyone seems to love the idea of having something that tastes like a lolly, but also gives you nutrients. Those two things just don't go together though. So creatine gummies have quickly flooded the market, and I'm seeing ads for them everywhere as I scroll through my phone. I think algorithms know if you'd be interested, they throw it at you. So the standard dose of creatine is usually between 3 to 5 grams per day as a maintenance dose. And with creatine powders, you would only really need a small scoop or two to get that dose. But with the gummies, it's not so simple. You don't just take one single gummy, which is what I think most people assume. It's what I assumed. But if we look at one of these brands, the Push creatine gummies, I'm only using them as an example because when I Google creatine gummies, they're the first thing that comes up. So I'm assuming they're a big brand. This brand says you need to have 3 gummies to have 5 grams of creatine, which means that each of their gummies have about 1.6 grams of creatine in them. Now, there is another brand, Overload. This brand says you need to take 2 of their gummies to get a 3 gram serve, which means if you want 5 grams, you need towards 4 gummies. Now, based on these numbers, each gummy from Overload should have about 1.5 grams of creatine. So these 2 brands seem to have about 1.5 grams of creatine per gummy. Or so we thought. So it turns out that the creatine gummies from Overload, this brand here, may not have the amount of creatine that they claim. And look, with these types of supplements, I do always assume a bit of give and take. Maybe there's a little less creatine than expected, or maybe there's a little bit more. And I think if it was a case of a little bit less or more, the majority of people would be okay with that. But these ones from Overload were put through third-party testing, which is when they get sent to a lab and we find out exactly how much of ingredients are in the product. It's a simple process, and it's just to make sure that your product has what it is claiming to have. And these gummies that were sent off, this particular batch, had about 0.0849 grams of creatine per serve. So let's break that down a bit. 0.0849 grams is 85 milligrams of creatine. 85 milligrams. Now they tested 3 gummies here. 3 gummies are supposed to have about 4.5 grams of creatine, which is about 4,500 milligrams of creatine. And these only had 85 milligrams. So I will leave those numbers on the screen for you to digest, but this is nowhere near what was claimed. This is based off only one batch that was sent off, so maybe it was a bad batch, something went wrong, an error, but I do know that more batches are actually being tested, so we will get a better idea in time. Now this is just one brand, obviously, but this does end up planting the seed of doubt in everyone's minds. What about all these other brands of creatine gummies? Do they have what they claim? And this is the issue with the supplement industry. It's not regulated. They don't have to prove anything. They should, but they don't have to. And what I have noticed now is that with social media, it's actually more about brands than the products themselves. So people are buying supplements because of the brand or a person behind a brand. And these brands, a lot of them are popular because the face of the brand is a person who is very much in shape and people would like to look like them, and then they claim to use this product and people buy things based on the branding. We need to focus on the product that we want. That's all that matters in the end. The more information that is provided about the product that you want, the better. In fact, ignore the branding if you can. Anyone can now start a brand and start selling things online. Now, I personally don't like buying supplements online unless I know it's a reputable brand. And once again, this is just another cautionary tale in the land of supplements. So at this stage, maybe stick to powders for creatine at the moment. It seems like the gummy technology just isn't there yet. But I will wait because I think there is potential there. I think it just needs some more work. Gummies are hard to formulate. Creatine itself can be quite unstable to work with, and when it's actually exposed to moisture or even heat, the creatine breaks down to something called creatinine, which is less effective. And in the process of making gummies, this process itself, it involves quite a bit of moisture in the actual gummy mixture, and heat exposure is part of making the actual gummies. So the actual process of making gummies creates conditions that can cause creatine to degrade into this creatinine, which is not as effective. So that is something that may be going on in all of these gummies, who knows? Now, I've already mentioned that creatine is a bit chalky and grainy, and combining that with a gummy mixture is also going to be hard. The gummies could come out grainy, and I think that's why a lot of people actually doubted these products, because they taste and they feel very smooth. It was as if there was no creatine in them, which turns out might be the actual case here. Now, my final concern with these creatine gummies is actually to do with hydration. Creatine itself, it doesn't directly cause dehydration, but what it does is increase the amount of water storage within your cells, which means that when you take creatine, water tends to move from outside of your cells to inside of your cells, and that will impact on your overall hydration status. So it's important then, regardless of what creatine that you're taking, that you increase your fluid intake, drink more water. When you take creatine in a powder form, you do dissolve it in water. Ends up being about 350 mils of water that you dissolve it in. Could be more. And this means that you are taking more water already with the creatine, which can help the situation. It keeps you a little bit more hydrated. When you take gummies, you don't get that. You don't get that extra water, which may increase the risk of feeling a bit dehydrated. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's something I'm thinking about with these gummies. Gummy versions of supplements like creatine, they're always the more expensive versions, and the last thing you want to do is be paying more for less. So this video was just to say, be careful out there. There's constantly new products hitting the market. Their advertising is very creative, but sometimes it is best to stick to the most simple thing, which in this case is just a simple creatine powder, which is super cheap as well. So if you have any questions or thoughts on this, please leave a comment below. I will see you in the next video, and until then, keep playing the long game.